adequate, adequate, adequate. So, let's talk about the word adequate. As a part of speech, adequate is an adjective, which means it describes or modifies a noun or pronoun. In common usage, adequate is often used to describe something that is sufficient for a particular purpose or situation, but not necessarily excellent or outstanding. For example, if someone says that the hotel room was adequate for our needs, they mean that it met their basic requirements, but might not have been particularly luxurious. It's worth noting that adequate can sometimes imply a lack of something being truly satisfactory or impressive, so be careful with how you use this word. In a job interview setting, if someone asks how you think your experience in customer service has prepared you for this role, you could respond with, "I believe my past experience has provided me with adequate training and skills to effectively manage a team and resolve conflicts, allowing me to hit the ground running." Here, adequate is used to convey that you have sufficient qualifications or background to perform the required duties. In everyday conversation, if someone asks how your new apartment's kitchen is holding up after a few weeks of use, you could say, "It's been adequate so far, but I'm still waiting for some of the appliances to be fixed." In this context, adequate means sufficient or good enough for now, with some minor issues that need to be addressed. In an academic setting, if someone is discussing a research study and mentions that the control group had adequate exposure to the experimental stimulus, you could say, "However, further analysis revealed that the duration of exposure may have been too short, which compromised the results." In this case, adequate means sufficient or proper in terms of the amount needed to achieve the desired outcome. So, when we talk about something being adequate, what we really mean is that it meets the minimum requirements or standards needed for a particular situation. It's like saying something is good enough or sufficient, not necessarily perfect, but good enough to get by or work well in everyday life. For example, if you're looking for a place to stay and someone offers you a room that's not fancy, but has all the basic necessities like a bed, shower, and working lights, then it would be considered adequate. It's similar to the words satisfactory or fair, in that they convey a sense of meeting expectations, even if it's not outstanding or exceptional. Annual, annual, annual. The word annual is quite versatile. As a part of speech, it's an adjective. In common usage, you'll often see annual used to describe something that happens once a year, like an annual celebration, e.g., our town hosts an annual summer festival, or a yearly tradition. You can also use it to talk about things that are related to a specific year, such as an annual report, e.g., the company's annual report showed impressive growth. What's important to note is that when you use annual in this way, the stress is on the first syllable, annual, and not on the last one like some other adjectives. This might take a little practice to get right, but once you've got it down, using annual will become second nature. Let me give you 3 examples of how to use the word annual in different contexts. So, I was talking to my aunt over the phone and she said, "I'm looking forward to our annual summer vacation at the beach. It's always a great time to relax with the family." In this casual conversation usage, the context is a personal or social setting where you're discussing plans or events with someone close to you. You can use the word annual to describe a regular event that happens every year, like a vacation or a holiday. But then I met up with some colleagues at work and we were discussing the company's annual report, which was due next quarter. One of them mentioned how important it is for us to meet our sales targets in order to exceed last year's numbers. In this business usage, annual refers to something that happens once a year, like an event or a milestone. But it's used in a professional context where you're discussing goals, reports, or performance metrics. And just the other day, I was at the library studying for my exam and I saw a flyer about the annual book fair that's happening next month. Apparently, they'll have thousands of books on sale and there will be author talks and workshops too. In this academic usage, annual is used to describe an event or a celebration that occurs every year, often in a specific field like literature or education. So you want to know about this thing that many people mention in conversations? Well, let me break it down for you. A certain period of time is typically used to describe something that happens every 12 months. Like how often we have birthdays or Christmas. It's a regular occurrence, like a routine, that happens at the same time each year. Think about your favorite holiday, and you'll get an idea of what I'm talking about. This concept is similar to cycle or rotation, where things repeat themselves over and over again in a predictable pattern. As for how it's used, people often mention this period of time when discussing schedules, planning events, or even just counting the days until their favorite day of the year. Apparent. 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 So, let's talk about the word apparent. As a teacher, I'm happy to explain it in detail. The part of speech for apparent is an adjective, which means it modifies or describes a noun. Common usage of this word shows that it often refers to something that seems true or obvious at first sight, but may not necessarily be the actual truth. For example, if someone says, "It's apparent that John is tired," they mean that it looks like he's exhausted, even though we might not know for sure without asking him. What's interesting about apparent is that it can sometimes imply a sense of something being temporary or superficial, as in, the apparent success was short-lived. So, special note to learners: be careful when using this word, as it can imply a level of uncertainty or doubt that might not always be what you intend. Here are 3 practical example sentences using the word apparent with different contexts. The lecture on climate change was quite persuasive, but some of the data that seemed apparent at first glance turned out to be flawed when questioned further. In this formal usage, I'm using apparent to describe a piece of information or evidence that appears to be true or obvious, but may not actually be so. My friend's apparent joy on social media after her breakup was pretty transparent. She was clearly just pretending to be fine. Here, in a casual conversation, I'm using apparent to describe something that seems to be the case, but is actually not as it appears. This usage is more informal and conversational. The market analysis suggested an apparent oversupply of goods in the industry, which would likely lead to lower prices for consumers. In this business or academic usage, I'm using apparent to describe a situation that seems to be true or obvious based on available data or research, but may require further investigation or verification. This type of language is commonly used in professional and academic writing. So you're trying to learn about this word, apparent. Okay, think of it like this. When something is apparent, it's really clear or obvious that it exists or is true. It's not hidden or hard to figure out. For example, if someone has a big bruise on their face, it's pretty clear that they were in a fight. The mark is visible and doesn't need much explanation. Mainly, This word is used when something is easily seen or understood by almost everyone. And similar concepts like obvious, clear, or evident can also mean the same thing as apparent, but sometimes with slightly different nuances. When you see something that's apparent, it means you don't need to think too much about it, it just makes sense based on what's in front of you.